All right. Hi, everyone. Welcome to our third session. If you've been with us for all three, that's awesome. If you're just joining us, welcome. Um, yeah, we've had fun talking about this so far, and we've learned a lot. And we're excited today to talk a little bit more about AI and general use cases, um, and uh, specifically AI literacy, ethical use, and inspiration. So stay tuned. As you're coming in, go ahead and share in the chat, as most of us have done in the past, your program, your role, and then this time, and what we want you to share any types of AI that you use in your daily life. So think a little bit um, about things you use every day, and maybe you know that they're AI, maybe you don't. So it's a little thought practice for you to think about what are the things you're interacting with every day already, and then we'll come together and talk about a few of those things, and then we'll get started. I guess, for example, my name is Melody Stapleton. I work at a program called Learning in Style, and it's in Minneapolis, Minnesota. It's an English school for adult immigrants, and my role is that I'm a digital literacy coordinator. So I teach a lot of the technology, the digital literacy skills, of course, with an ESL lens to make sure everyone has the digital skills needed to survive every day. Um, See where everyone's coming in from. I see someone said Siri, definitely. That is definitely one. Everything in Google Drive. Yeah, and Google searches, a lot of things on the cell phone. AI is kind of everywhere. Okay, if you're just coming in, go ahead and put your program, your role, and any types of AI you use. But I will go ahead and get started with our presentation. First, we're just going to go ahead and look at what are some of these that we might be using every day in our everyday lives. Some of you already mentioned Siri, Google Search, and those types of things. There's Google Maps or Waze. Some we don't always think about are text editors or autocorrect, especially. That is a sort of AI being used to catch some of those things and decide, like, oh, hey, do you want to change the spelling? Or it just changes it without you asking. I don't love autocorrect many times because I have that problem a lot. Even though it's supposed to be helpful. Sometimes it is, but we know it often is not. Siri and Alexa, we mentioned a little bit of that. Some people have like smart what is it called? Google Home. I think that's what it's called. Um, there's facial recognition. There's search and recommendation algorithms. You can see a little picture I screenshot here with Google. When you're typing something into Google and there's like different recommendations, that's taking a lot of data, of course. But then based on what you're already typing, it's kind of like with the text prediction situation we've talked about. It's saying, oh, are these things you want to look up? That is a piece of AI, especially dealing with language models. So um, a lot of you already interact with these things every day. And of course, AI is we're getting more complex versions of it, which is why we're talking about it. We just wanted to make you a little more aware of the things you already deal with every day. We want to talk about the elephant in the room because we know that AI is messy, AI is everywhere. We cannot really escape it at this point. And AI affects all of us, whether we choose to use it or not. So we know this is a whole series on AI and learning how to use it. We want to be really clear that we know this is not a black and white issue. Um, there are a lot of problems that AI can cause, or a lot of unfortunate impacts in our environment that, yeah, that it brings. One thing we wanted to kind of point out is we feel like AI is kind of like a car. Cars, especially where we live, at least in the United States, and especially maybe in cities that don't heavily rely on great public transportation all the time, some of us, the only way to survive and get around is by using a car. Cars are not great for our environment. They put a bunch of gross stuff in the air. Um, there are many problems with cars that we don't love, but still we can't quite escape that many of us do rely on them. And so sometimes we can try to think of ways, how can we use these things more mindfully? Maybe with a car, so there will be sometimes maybe you can walk somewhere, maybe you can share a ride, maybe you can try public transportation if it is accessible or makes sense in that way. You can try to buy a different kind of car. There are many different ways, at least, even though cars still aren't great and we don't love them for our environment or the impacts that they might have, we still can find ways to attempt to be mindful. And so that's kind of the goal of our series, is saying it's here and it's kind of in our face and we can't get away from it. How can we move forward knowing how it works and how we can work with it in a maybe ethical approach, and still use it as maybe a helpful tool when we choose to use it. Is this Elizabeth's slide, or do you want me to take
Yeah,
this
I
slide?
can speak to
Perfect.
this.
Perfect.
So I did an entire session on this at Summer Institute, but I just think it's so important that we are talking about AI with learners. A lot of us have learners who are already using AI, using ChatGPT or Gemini or many other AI tools. Whether we've taught them to or not, they are teaching themselves. Um, and like we just said, it's this technology is affecting all of us, whether we opt in or not. And so World Education, which is an organization that we work with a lot, they do a lot of great work to support adult educators with supporting adult learners with technology and digital literacy and digital resilience. They have defined AI literacy as being aware of the use and impact of AI in the world around you and being able to critically evaluate and effectively and ethically employ AI to meet your goals. So we can go on to the next slide. That was just a screenshot from this little document called AI Literacy Matters for Everyone. I've linked it in the slides and in the handout that I'll give you at the end of the session. But it's really nice. It has all these one-page little summaries of how AI appears in areas of health and financial literacy and family literacy. This larger screenshot is from the family literacy page. So just pointing out different ways that we are already interacting with AI in our everyday lives. And then things to think about. With AI literacy, I can monitor my kids' tech use. Um, my children, I'm a parent, my children, for better or for worse, have discovered Instagram Reels. And we talk about how, like, if you touch that little heart or if you save the video for later, the app is going to keep giving you similar videos. And then we also talk about how, not everything you see in these videos is actually real. Um, it may not be a real person talking, it could be an AI generated voice, and it could be the whole video is AI generated. The things that you're seeing in the video never even happened. So just really important for parents and everyone to know about AI and start talking about it. We can go to the next one. Another resource that I have shared previously, but I'm sharing it again because I think it's so great. There is a lesson collection. I think it's about 6 to 8 lessons designed for grades 6 through 12, but I have used them with adult learners. I use them in an intermediate, like level 4 ESL class. Very adaptable for adults. Um, and just very approachable, talking about like what even is AI and how we can think critically about it. And these are all free lessons. Some of them have videos, they all have slides, some of them have handouts, just stuff that is ready to go, and ready for you to use. We can go on to the next one. Um, Also, since we talked about Magic School last week, I wanted to point out Magic School, and there are other platforms as well. But Magic School has a whole section called Magic Student, which is tools designed for teachers if you want to try to you know, you can't really control it, honestly, but in a somewhat more controlled or scaffolded way, if you want to roll out specific AI tools for your learners, and really do teaching about how to use these tools effectively. We can go to the next slide. Another idea, this is from Jason Gulia is his name. He's a professor at Berkeley College. Um, and he just posts a lot about AI and education on LinkedIn. So this was something he shared on LinkedIn that I thought was kind of interesting. He has this activity that he gives to students, kind of personifying AI as Carl. And what are we gonna do with Carl? Are we gonna, let him be the leader in our group project? Are we going to totally trust everything he says? Should we ask him all our questions or only certain types of questions? Just ways to think about, what is the best way to use this tool? We can go on to the next one. And then another approach, this is from another college professor. Nick, you can feel free to speak to this, but I liked this little slideshow that this person had put together. Um, they're a computer science professor. I think they want to remain anonymous because I could not find their actual name anywhere. But their approach is like absolutely no AI use in their classes whatsoever. Sorry, go ahead,
Yeah,
Nick.
and I can take the torch. So this professor, who I believe is Blue Professor on Blue Sky, like Elizabeth said, they have chosen to remain semi-anonymous. I suspect that if a student looked at this account, they'd be like, "Oh, it's Professor so and so." Uh, but they had a no AI policy in class, just like how we don't necessarily want to discourage using AI use. We also want to, in pursuit of developing literacy in our everyday interactions with this technology, want to know how to limit or reasons to even restrict AI use. And in this educator's context, a college computer science course, he took a firm no AI stance. As he's written on here, the key thing is he's not interested in his students showcasing if AI can solve a problem. And that's what happens when a student gets AI to do their homework. They've shown that the AI can solve this homework, not that the student has the critical thinking skills to solve this particular problem, apply a theory, replicate an experiment, etc., etc. This really stuck with me because it's what I want my students, if I were teaching a college class, a high school class, and of course an ABE class, what I would want my students to take away from their interactions with AI is that they're not using it to solve a problem. They're using it to help themselves work through a problem. The AI isn't an automatic band-aid for these situations. Uh, and what the purpose of a problem, what the purpose of all this homework is to help garner and sharpen critical thinking skills. So this really sticks with me. And I think it's a good maxim to keep in our minds to begin shaping AI as a tool in our heads. And having that, like Melody brought up at the very beginning of this session, having that sit by all these other qualifiers that make AI messy. Like it's a powerful tool. It can be used. Later on during my own part, I'll showcase a function that AI uses for conducting research. It can even be a little bit fun, like when you make funny pictures using ChatGPT. And that can sit next to all this other uncomfortable stuff, like how large data companies are being irresponsible, ecologically irresponsible in their construction of data centers, or how venture capitalists are being rather willfully ignorant about the consequences of superheating their particular sector of the economy. Uh, so, in short, I hope that if you take anything away from this lesson, it's this right here. I'm going to get off my soapbox and ask to progress to the next slide.
That was very well said, Nick
Yeah,
and Elizabeth, both of you. Um,
this might be the same thing, but a little bit more concise.
yeah. So, yeah, just diving in a little more to some specific maybe examples or ideas to provide for AI usage in a classroom or whatever space you're in. We were going to show you a little bit about some rubrics that some other teachers have made that you could look at. So actually, yeah, we'll look at that first to kind of set some usage and expectations in the classroom. Did you want to speak to this, Elizabeth, or do you want me
Um,
to?
just to say, this was developed by teachers in Bloomington Public Schools, and I thought it was a very thoughtful and really helpful approach to just thinking about like you as the teacher, you really need to think, what is my learning objective for this activity? Um, and then if the key thing that you want learners to practice is synthesizing information from multiple sources, they probably shouldn't be using AI for that thing. But maybe it is okay if they use AI for, proofreading to help with spelling and punctuation and grammar. Or maybe it's okay if they use it for other things. But just having this list of um, uses and deciding like really being intentional and thinking through about what's going to be okay and what's going to not be okay.
Yeah, and I like how you said it too, how this, you can kind of intentionally scaffold these kind of things. And since AI is here, we can try to think about, okay, if students are going to try to use it, again, I really like the idea too. You can still choose, don't even use it. That's completely valid. But also just as another option, like, yeah, here are ways we can intentionally scaffold how students might still use their critical thinking skills and what is the outcome we want for them to learn. So this is a very general thought, but thinking about trying to work alongside AI too, um, since a lot of students might be trying to use it outside of class to do their homework or write a paper or something like that. I know that's a big frustrating thing. One thought can be coming up with assignments or things to do in class that might be something like having students use AI to write a paper. So if you say, you're not just like, I need you to write a paper, and then they go and use AI to do it. You're like, okay, first I'm going to have you use AI to write a paper. Then we're going to use that to learn from. So you could have students then, depending on what criteria they have to put in for their paper, you could have them locate and explain any errors that were made, maybe by the chatbot or whatever AI they're using. Then they could also find and explain what it did do well. Maybe it is doing really well with writing this paper. And so, but they have to be able to like go and find it and explain that. And then maybe they could pick 3 things that they would change to improve it and make it even better, or to match better the theme that it should be, or whatever it could be. You can challenge them, try to write better than the AI. These are just some thoughts of like, how can you work with it? And we still need them to be using like critical thinking. And as a lot of us have been talking about too, how are we learning how it works, how to prompt? Teaching your students very basic things about that will not only help them maybe have more critical thinking skills, but also they will learn how to do some of these things as well, or watch for especially misinformation. That is a big thing. So maybe, maybe they're not using AI in class, but for homework, but they might be using it outside of that. You can use this as an opportunity to kind of help your students learn how to watch out for some of those things, or just to be noticing things more and catching those things, or questioning things. Say, okay, we asked it to write about the specific topic, but we should go fact check that, teach those skills, so you can kind of use it as a springboard for a lot of those skills as well. So there are still a lot of benefits to that. So I explained a little bit here, doing these things instead of banning it completely. Again, totally a valid choice, but we do know that kids are still going to be kids, or adults. Many of us are teachers of adults. People will still be running into it based on it having to use it sometimes, or using it of their own choice. And then in this case, you're not necessarily having to fight it, but then also you're using it as a tool of learning, so that they are having to use their brains and apply what they're learning about writing or about whatever it is you're teaching. Then they're also learning and practicing their critical thinking skills, fact checking, just like I said. And they are practicing using the AI as a starting point or a tool, but then having to finish the rest. So it's giving them that exact practice of, okay, sure, it wrote this thing. It's writing a resume. A lot of people are using it to write a resume even, but that's something you have to be careful too, is say, watch out. You don't want to put too much personal information in here. You can use it for conversations like that, but then they have to go in and they have to finish the rest. They have to fix some of the things or tweak it to be what they want it to be in the end. So since you've learned how to do that, you can also teach them to do similar things. And then hopefully, as they're out in the world, running into these every day, maybe they'll at least be able to take that with them and apply those skills in that way. And we could just take a quick minute thinking of these things just to get our brains going a little bit. In the chat, or even you can turn on your microphone and share an idea if you have one, or if you've done something like this already, please share, especially if you've done something like this, just to get some ideas in the chat. What are some ideas y'all have that you could do to try to use AI in this way in the classroom or whatever situation you are in?
And Camille asked a great question in the chat.
Yeah, I'm trying to catch up.
Camille, if you want to turn on your microphone and speak more to that, that would be great. Otherwise, I'll just say, for those of you viewing the recording, Camille's question was, if we are asking students not to use AI, then should we as teachers be using it?
It's a great question. Love that.
Yeah, I guess I was just thinking like it would be a question that students might ask. Um, if we make that like a just overall ban of like no AI use or something, I just don't think it's very practical. Um,
Totally.
and then also, but also I think we could set our own parameters, like and be transparent with students about what we're going to use AI for if we know. We might say like, well, I wouldn't use AI to grade your homework or something because it might make mistakes. Like we know it might make mistakes, so I'm not going to use it to do that. Or I don't know. I was just thinking about what students would say to a ban, and then if
Yeah.
if we're using it, it just seems like kind of hypocritical.
I love that. I agree with that strongly, because I think, yeah, why would we be using it and say, you can't even use it? That happens a lot, I feel like, and at least in the past too, with teacher and student relationships. And there's a lot of this like, well, I can do this, but you can't. And which of course, sometimes those things happen, but I do think that's actually a really great opportunity with even relationship building and trust building to be like, hey, let's be transparent. I think that's a great word to use here because um, you can be a great model for that too. You say, well, this is kind of a complicated situation. And that's a great thing to talk about with your students. They're not too young to be talking about the potential problems with this, and that teachers are all trying to figure out how to deal with this. And like, we're trying to teach you students, and we really want you to be able to learn. And we know this is here. So, hey, let's talk about it. I think that's perfect. And yeah, definitely, I can definitely say, well, why can you use it? And we can't. That doesn't really, yeah, that makes it harder. And that's kind of why we're kind of bringing up these ideas of like, it's a pretty big fight if you're gonna just choose to ban it. It is your choice, absolutely can do that, but you just have to know like the maybe I don't want to call them consequences, but the difficulties that come along with that, and maybe missed opportunities of the students getting to see you as a model to show how to use it and maybe discuss and bring them into that learning. I think it's a really great opportunity. And you can talk about this is bad for our environment. We don't want to use it all the time. And some students will really care about that and maybe be like, oh, maybe I should try something else. Who knows? So I think that's really great. It's again a big, messy topic. And that's why we really want to hear from y'all with your ideas. We all want to work together to kind of move forward the most mindful way we can for all of you and our students and just everyone. So thank you for sharing that. I really appreciate it.
Yeah,
Did anyone
I would
go
also
ahead?
emphasize that a blanket ban is probably impossible, but encouraging
Yeah,
students to either restrict their own AI usage for particular assignments or to use AI critically, like to ask a student, well, why is this output better than the other output? And to get them thinking about that is probably more along the lines of where I would go.
And I'll just read for those of you viewing the recording. We've got the idea of taking what the AI wrote and trying to make it better. You know, you're going to be that human in the loop. Um, Another idea for using AI in the classroom is transcribing your voice if you want to work on your pronunciation. Is your pronunciation close enough that the AI can understand you? Can it even correct you? Um, and then yeah, maybe we're not banning AI. Maybe we're not telling students to never use AI in their lives, but maybe we're just restricting use in certain contexts. Um, Camille points out you can use AI for searching for articles in more academic settings. There are actually specialized AI tools that are really great for academic research and citations. You just have to be careful and use the correct tool because there are also AI tools that will just make up things that don't exist. Um, Oh, Camille says there's going to be some practical AI themed sessions from instructors at the Minnesota English Language Program at MELED coming up this weekend. Thank you.
oh, I miss MetLed. That's awesome. Yeah, feel free to email us anything you learn, honestly. We're all here to hear what else is being shared out there. That would be awesome. If so, yeah, if especially yeah, any of you who attend these things, if there's ever anything y'all find as good resources, I personally would love to hear them. Or I don't know, Elizabeth, how people share things back with us, but I don't know. I always want to hear, yeah, what you're seeing out out in the wild. So yeah, that's awesome. I hope it goes well at Millet and let us know what you learn. All right. Well, thank you guys for sharing. Um, Keep thinking about these things and think of your colleagues and work together to think of these things too. You can help in your schools and wherever you're at to help others who might feel overwhelmed with this topic to brainstorm and work together because doing it alone is a lot. All right, I'll pass it on to who's our next person again?
It's me. I am the next
Matthew,
person.
thank you.
Hello, I'm Padge. I'm right now I'm a sort of a digital literacy coordinator, Vista, over at Literacy Minnesota right now. And I'm going to tell you about my experience using AI for like administrative and supportive functions of a learning program. So it started small, right? I was going around looking, I'll tell you the whole journey here. I was looking around for a way to generate a QR code, right? Just do like your regular QR code that you can scan with your phone and go to a website. And I noticed online all the places that were doing it, all the websites, they would always attach a link to it. So you would end up not going directly to the QR code. You would go to, you know, some organizations, some company's website that's trying to sell you something, and then they would send you to a QR code. I said to myself, well, you don't necessarily need to do that. I mean, it's just the QR code is basically just like a barcode, except it does things differently, yada, yada, yada. There must be a better way. So I'm like, fine, I'm just going to ask chat how to do it. And chat was like, hey, you can use Python to do it. And I was like, okay. I mean, I have some background in coding, not like an intensive background. I'm talking like I made a couple GeoCities websites back in the day. So I'm not exactly an expert at computers in that way. So it was very helpful to, get some of these connections. AI was able to make some of these connections with me, and I was able to sort of use that as a way to learn more about programming than I would have normally. So that was the first example. And then I moved to something I had to create like a timesheet for someone for a program, right? And previously we used a series of Excel documents and it was a mess. The Excel documents weren't really aggregating well, and it was difficult for people to enter them. So I knew the objective I wanted to get to and the inputs that would occur, right? I knew that people would be inputting their hours when they worked. The structure of it was going to take a Google Forms document, and then I wanted it to filter it. I wanted it to then look at that and calculate the number of hours that people were doing, right? Without them having to input a lot of work on their side, because we're working with young adults who were not necessarily the most savvy at technology. So, asking, I knew how to do it in Excel, right? But I didn't know how to do it in Sheets, and they're just different enough that they don't work together. So I asked chat, what would I use? And it's like, oh yeah, you would use the query command in Sheets, and this is how you would do it. And this is what you're going through, and these are the steps you should take. Here is some code. And of course, I looked at the code. I did not wholeheartedly like copy paste it into there. I looked over it first to make sure it was doing what it was doing, test it in a small scale, and then I did implement it, and it was actually quite a success. It made things dramatically easier for the people in the program on the front end, and on the back end, the outputs from it were completed hours and time cards that were filled in properly. It required a lot less work from people. But there was that sort of like, having clear expectations of what I wanted it to do and to iterate a solution step by step. I didn't, whole hog throw stuff in. And lastly, and something that probably appeals to most of you, is the most complex project that I've used AI to help with is automating SID hours entry. So I have a lab that I coordinate. And so we get in, daily hours. And I thought to myself, entering in hours in SID is terrible for a lab, because you have to sit there and pick a drop-down menu, you have to pick a date, you have to do step by step by step by step by step. It's a nightmare. How can I make this faster? Because I don't want to spend hours of my day doing that. So I asked AI. Well, of course, I started off very, very simple, right? Could I just input stuff into an Excel sheet and have it uploaded? Okay, I did that. Could I get it to navigate successfully to a website? I did. And using Python, and I didn't use a single AI model. I just asked different ones. And I'd like to state, for the record, you gotta keep in mind that anything that you input into an AI model will then be in that model, right? It learns from it. So I kept all of my code local. I kept all of my SID records local. My passwords were not shared with the models. I try to keep everything as much as I could local. So it was just on my computer and on paper, of course, because required to keep paper. Um, so yeah, step by step, and we have something that is a lot quicker than it would be ordinarily, and it has a lot better record keeping than just loose sheets of paper because people are signing in by hand. The next step, of course, is coming up with like a electronic login, and then if people can like come in, start their hours when they enter, when they leave on like a tablet, it's that much less work because then I don't have to transcribe from written into digital because it's already done. So hypothetically, it can be quite a time saver, but there's some caveats. We're good for the next slide. So some of the caveats and lessons here. The AI scripts did work well, usually. Usually, sometimes when you would get something out from the output from the AI, it would not be what you wanted. Sometimes it would break what you were working on, right? Because it doesn't have like the awareness of a human, right? It looks at stuff sometimes it doesn't think it through, right? So because it doesn't think, it's like a dog. It retrieves things for you. Um, anyway, and of course, some of the things I mentioned, like security, it's very important. Don't put your passwords into a large language model. Keep them local. Privacy, and that's again dealing with something like student or learner information. Don't share that directly with a large language model. Maintainability, and that is something that is harder to ascertain. But when you do new versions of a script you may be working on with AI, make sure to save your old versions and take good notes on what's working, what's not working. And there's a lot of talk of prompt engineering, but a lot of working with AI is just talking to it because it's actually pretty good at figuring out what you're asking it. Again, keep it simple. I tried to start as simple as I could with, can I get an AI, or can I get a script that AI generated to take me to a website? Okay, I could. Great, I did that. Step one. And then step two was, can I get it to input text? Good, it's doing it. Step three, and then I added to it, it would connect to an Excel document. So I just enter in my learner hours into an Excel document and do that. And, built it up from there. And that step-by-step process has it's made it, makes me have a better handle on what it is I'm doing. B, it also like, it I learn more that way, of course. Anyway, and that's the most important part. I'm not using this just to be the be-all solution. Some people, this is oftentimes called vibe coding, is where you just basically input something, tell AI to make an app, and it'll do it for you, or a script, and then just vibe, right? That's where the name comes from. But in this example, you don't want to give it all the reins. You want to make sure that you're controlling the AI and what you're putting into it and what you're getting out of it, and trying to step by step incrementally develop what you need, a solution you want. Lastly, I will say that AI is not a substitute for computing knowledge, right? You need to have some knowledge of computing when you go into it if you want to use it for making scripts or automating some of your Excel functions, or something like SID entry. You have to have some idea. Things like, you see those icons right there. Those are for development environments. You have IDLE and Visual Studio Code. These are some of the programs you will need to use if you're trying to implement AI coding in any sort of meaningful way. And then you will need to have that level of competency plus general sort of computing knowledge in order to make it work. Don't trust. I mean, it's important to trust, but verify, right? So make sure that the AI is giving you what you need and it's not giving you what you don't. Anyways, that's all I got for my experience there.
All right, thanks a ton. Let me get my camera up. This next segment will be me talking about Cobalt and Gemini. First of all, again, thank you very much to Paj. Throughout these crash courses, like a major theme that we'll reiterate is that one advantage of using generative AI is that it can, in theory, save time or make something applicable. And out of everybody, Paj, among with a few other instructors, is one of the people who did it, who went out and did it. So yay! As opposed to me, who mostly uses AI as a glorified Clippy. So I'm here to talk about two AI apps that we have accessible. If you're curious about AI, whether using it like how Paj did, or using it like how Elizabeth does, or using it in the way that Melody gave a theoretical use case sample, these are the two AI apps which people likely have. I'm going to just quickly ask our participants, feel free to just shout out or respond in the chat. Who's heard of Copilot and Gemini? I imagine that we've all heard of ChatGPT, but what about these two? Linda, heard of both? This Melody Stapleton person has heard of something. Yes to both. Jen has been studiously ignoring Copilot and Gemini. Paj has worked with Copilot. Yes to both. Yes, but haven't used Gemini from Elizabeth. Yes to both. Yes to both. All right. So the long story forth, we can advance to the next slide and get the deal on what their deals are. They respectively belong to Microsoft and Google. Copilot is there on the left. That's the 365 app. Gemini's there on the right. So if your organization has a Microsoft 365 account or a Google Workplace, then you have access to these apps. You do have access to the paid tier of generative AI chatbot. So a lot of people might think that you need to get explicitly an OpenAI subscription, a ChatGPT subscription, but you might have access to these two apps. Elizabeth has an important kind of asterisk to that statement. You check with your IT department to see if these two apps are allowed. They might not be, in which case you're stuck with the free versions. You can find either of them online through Copilot's web portal or through Microsoft Office 365's web portal. Last I checked, it redirected to Copilot as the main page. That might no longer be true. Things are always changing. And Google Gemini can be accessed from Google Workspace from the list of all the Google apps. Let's go forward. There are a few different use cases that I found with each. Copilot, earlier I joked that it was glorified Clippy. Clippy was Microsoft's abortive attempt to make a somewhat dynamic help desk. It was an animated paperclip. Uh, and where that turned into a dead end. Copilot has been, yeah, I really should have gotten a little clippy icon thing here. But where that turned into a dead end, thank you, Pash. Copilot has been integrated into Microsoft 365 apps. It's kind of integrated with the help function. So if you open up something like Excel or PowerPoint or Word, there'll be a Copilot tab, a Copilot option. Microsoft's Copilot can interact with its workplace apps. For example, if I tell Copilot, hey, take this data inside of an Excel column and export it to a PDF, Copilot will try to do that. If I tell Copilot in PowerPoint, hey, can you design a theme around oranges based on these sunny colors, Copilot will try to do that. And how successful it is, of course, varies. The point being, Copilot is what is known as an AI agent. or at least it has access to various AI agents, which are kind of, to my understanding, sub AIs, or they are specialist AIs. They've been trained in a certain way to do something. So you might have an AI agent who's been specialized to work with PowerPoint, or one that's been specialized to work with Excel. Gemini does a bunch of different things with Google. What I want to highlight will be deep research mode. Let's go to the next slide. But Nick, I can already just save as a PDF or whatever. Well, Elizabeth brings up a useful point. We got to pack it up. AI is over. What I found unique about Copilot is that through common language, this is the promise of Copilot. We're kind of backing up a little bit. Is I can, through common language, tell it to save one specific column as opposed to my entire sheet. And although the Copilot experiments that I've run with have been kind of hit or miss, I'm kind of giving Copilot a good grade based on the effort that it put in. One thing that I did appreciate is that I did not have to access PDF editing software. I didn't have to access a PDF editor to cut out extraneous parts. I didn't have to just focus in or do anything like create a fillable field. I didn't have to insert a fillable field text box. That's kind of the promise that I find interesting. With deep research mode on Gemini, before I go on, I hope that at least communicated what I found useful about Copilot. With deep research mode, I'm going to ask permission to share my screen from the host.
You should be able to do that already, Nick, because you're a co-host.
Oh, yeah. And we're going to take a brief field trip to my Google account,
Should I
my
stop
work Google
sharing my
account.
screen? I can't remember.
I'm sorry, Melody.
Should I stop sharing my screen?
I don't think we're seeing the PowerPoint, so I don't think you have to. When
No,
I
I
stop staring, it might snap back to the Canvas presentation. And I've accessed Gemini. And what I'm going to do is to select deep research mode. I'm not going to make a game from scratch, even though the temptation is high. And I'm going to ask it, as soon as I move Zoom's stuff out of the way, and I'm going to ask it, can you make a bibliography or recommended reading list for students at the seventh grade level about the U.S. Civil War? The reading list should cover content such as major events, significant individuals, let's do major events and significant individuals. It should also highlight some introductory resources to explain the discipline of history for seventh graders. And we're going to put Gemini in thinking mode. So what I wanted to highlight with deep research, and Gemini is not the only AI that does this, is deep research summarizes what steps the generative AI is taking, what resources it's looking at, kind of showing you a behind the scenes of how it is working. Uh, so if AI is something of a black box to you, or you're worried about not building critical insight when using I think deep research mode is kind of interesting, at least in far as it does, at least insofar as it goes towards showcasing humanities research, or even just preparing a resource list, or making things like bibliographies, reading lists. I'm very interested in using Gemini or Perplexity to kind of look at large collections of data, look at large reading lists, and isolate interesting books, or at least model what critical research is like. So here, the AI rewords my prompt, begins looking at the vast field of literature, examines book lists, mentions a few resources here. I'm kind of breezing over it. Defining historical thinking. And again, you'll have to apply your own faculties as a teacher to kind of limit or identify what's a good source, what's a bad source. Synthesizing frameworks, key narrative. And again, you have to think critically about AI. Like, this is a pretty good job at having an automated research, but you'll need to vet it and account for what things you want students to walk away with. Like for my own history lesson, I would want students to get an idea of what the global economy was like. I might want to add in some resources about there. I might want to add in some primary texts from prominent Black Americans from the Civil War, things like that. All right, I'm going to hand the baton back and stop sharing. So again, those were two resources that I highlighted because a lot of organizations have access to them, and they're both capable of stuff which puts them on par in ChatGPT and shows you something of how the sausage is moving.
Thank you, Nick. What was this one? I'm not sure who had this slide.
Oh, well, I'll take it because I'm pretty sure it was supposed to be me.
No
All
problem.
right, more behind the scenes training. We were so thrilled with deep research that I totally forgot about this slide. Apologies for posterity. But as we saw with Gemini in Google Slides and also Canva's AI, this presentation is used in Canva. Generative AI can help cut out some of the busy work by making things like a PowerPoint theme or a slides theme. It can generate the major beats of an outline. It can translate that into a slideshow. And it can help design custom graphics. Again, AI is messy. There's a lot of noise right now about generative AI and its image design. But custom graphics are something that have been a bit of a bugbear for organizations like ourselves who frequently get bullied by copyright stuff. So for a while, AI was kind of a way to circumnavigate those concerns.
The other thing with this, Nick, this was actually a slide I had created for a training I had done, was just to show that while we think about Gemini and Copilot and ChatGPT and a few other things, a lot of products are just going to end up integrating little bits of AI or little things that it can do into everyday software. Adobe does it with Fireflight. Google Slides is doing it to just generate images now. So one thing that AI will you'll start seeing more of it if you haven't already, is it'll just be little integrations into it. So not every company will have its own AI platform, but they'll find a little piece that will make their product better, the same way Magic Bus did, and Khan Academy and everybody else. AI will just kind of slip little bits here and there, and that's why when everybody says it's going to be, take over the world, it will be in little ways. It's not all going to be, it's not a giant mechanic brain thinking of things. It's just little little automations. A lot of times you can almost think of it as automations within software more than artificial intelligence. So that's kind of what this slide was meant to represent. Sorry, I didn't quite notice that it had come off of my AI training from earlier this fall, Nick. Thanks for explaining it.
Yeah, no problem. And again, whatever ideas we can percolate among the audience. All right, let's move on to the next slide. Another elephant.
One's going to talk about more elephants.
Go ahead. I think we have like about 3 minutes remaining, so.
I mean, I did not make the slide, so I was not sure. Does anyone else want to claim the slide?
I made this slide yesterday when you had said at this point in the presentation, we wanted to talk about the elephant in the room, but then it kind of got
Got
pushed
it.
forward and it probably just didn't get removed from the stack. Sorry.
Got it. Well, it's good to just keep bringing it back because AI's got a lot of elephants. So I think it's fair. That is a nice elephant you chose. So everyone appreciate this elephant. Hopefully not created by AI, but we don't know.
I think this may have just been a leftover slide as well.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Okay,
apologies.
sorry everyone.
You journeyed into it.
We journeyed into it. We did the vibe coding. Okay, is this the end of our
All right.
Yeah, so if you're viewing the recording, you can go ahead and pause the recording and get that tiny URL for the handout. I will also just drop the link in the chat for you if you're viewing it right now. That has links to our slides and various other resources that we shared in this session. As with the other two sessions, there will be a follow-up email, and to get your CEU certificate, you'll just fill out the evaluation, and then there will be a link to download your CEU certificate. And you are always welcome to contact us at this ridiculously long email address for our help desk. It's on the handout, so you can get it there. And just thank you so much. We've really enjoyed having these sessions. And if you have ideas for future sessions, let us know. We would love to hear them.
and please give feedback. We love feedback.
Yeah, but thank you very much for coming.